One of the first people Jesus confronted was not a demon-possessed man or immoral outcast, but a ruler terrified of losing control. This ruler, Herod, represents threatened narcissistic power, fear-driven, image-protective, paranoid, and willing to harm the innocent to preserve status. Today, we're exploring this pattern. Jason, can you help us understand how Herod's reaction to a newborn child gives us such a clear window into this dynamic?
It's a foundational incident, Rachel, because the gospel story presents Herod's reaction not as wonder, but as profound fear. This ruler hears about a potential rival, a new king, and he immediately translates that possibility into a threat to his own power. It's crucial to note that this child has done nothing to challenge him directly. He hasn't marched or preached or seized anything. Yet Herod's fear is already fully active. That's a hallmark of threatened narcissistic power. It doesn't wait for an open challenge. It reacts to the mere possibility of loss, the slightest hint that its control might be slipping.
So it's not a rational assessment of danger, but a deeply ingrained, almost paranoid reaction to anything that might decenter him. What happens next in Herod's mechanism of control?
The mechanism intensifies quickly. Herod consults religious interpreters, not because he's genuinely open to truth or seeking divine guidance for the good of his people. He's using religion as an intelligence-gathering tool for his threatened power. He then speaks the language of devotion, implying that he too wishes to honor this new child. His words are soft, but his intent is violent. And when direct control fails, when he can't precisely locate and eliminate the perceived threat, the violence spills downward onto the innocent. He orders the killing of all male children 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and its vicinity. It's a devastating act, showing that preservation of his self, his status, his image matters more than truth or innocent lives.
That's a chilling illustration. It brings to mind that idea that when power feels threatened, it often attacks the weakest first. Can you elaborate on why that specific dynamic of targeting the innocent happens?
It happens because narcissistic systems often injure the low power first. They rarely strike the most dangerous target directly, especially when that target is elusive or well protected. Instead, they strike where the cost is lowest and the message is clearest. Innocence becomes collateral damage because the preservation of the narcissist's self, their fragile ego, their control always matters more than truth or justice. Herod embodies this threatened entitlement. He can't imagine a reality where another center of authority exists without it becoming an attack on him. It's not about whether the child has actually harmed him, it's about the feeling that he's being displaced.
And the Gospels present Jesus' arrival in stark contrast to this throne logic, don't they? He didn't come with armies or political maneuvering.
Precisely. Jesus enters the world without what we might call palace logic. He didn't seek elite validation. He wasn't born in the right room, under the right optics, or through institutional approval. His very existence, his humble existence, threatened the throne of Herod simply because truth had entered the room. He embodied a form of authority that was real without borrowing the throne's symbols of domination or spectacle. This is the core contrast with Herod's fear-based control. Christ's kingdom operates on a sandals principle, which means mercy flows downward, accountability upward, and there's a deep protection of the vulnerable.
So his existence itself was a rebuke to Herod, even before he spoke a single word or performed a miracle. That's a powerful idea. And this pattern of threatened power lashing out, especially at the innocent, isn't just an ancient story. Where do we see this Herod pattern in modern life?
This pattern is alarmingly common. We see it whenever narcissistic parents, religious leaders, bosses, institutions, or partners panic when they sense they're losing control. Instead of confronting the actual issue or the person truly challenging them, they often strike where the cost is lowest. Think of a parent punishing the softest child to stabilize the room, or an institution retaliating against the least protected employee instead of addressing a core problem. It appears when a church discredits someone with less social power to protect a platform, or whenever innocence itself becomes irritating because it reminds power of what it is no longer.
It's that soft target dynamic then. The person or system needing to maintain control doesn't usually go after the strongest, but rather those who are most vulnerable or have the least protection.
Exactly. This is where Dr. Remini Dervasula's work, particularly her insights in Don't You Know Who I Am, become so relevant. Herod embodies the psychology of status that cannot tolerate decentering. He's the archetype of power that experiences another person's mere existence as disrespect. Narcissistic systems often believe that preserving their image justifies extraordinary, even violent reactions. This reaction might be framed as prudence or investigation, but the emotional core is always entitlement under threats. Herod isn't just a historical villain, he's a repeating human pattern. He reminds us that threatened power doesn't always look dangerous at first. It can look cautious, strategic, or orderly, performing seriousness while deciding what it will destroy.
And Jesus, in this initial encounter, exposes that pattern. But he does it without becoming a counter-tyrant himself. He offers a different way.
That's the key. Jesus exposes the mechanism of control and fear without mirroring it. He doesn't come to replace one throne with another. His authority, rooted in love and truth, is a direct challenge to the kind of power that needs to crush to stand. The sandals principle here is simple yet profound. Authority that fears innocence is not of God. True authority doesn't need to slaughter the lowly to remain secure. It's a burden-lifting love, not control, that defines his kingdom.
So for anyone who's felt the impact of this pattern, that's incredibly validating.
It is. If you've ever watched a controlling person redirect their fear onto someone smaller, more vulnerable, or easier to silence, this story helps you trust your perception. The violence may have been indirect, the justification may have sounded respectable, but the pattern was still real. Herod reminds us that narcissistic power isn't always loud before it becomes deadly. It often begins in wounded entitlement, then wraps itself in procedure or consultation, and only later reveals the blood underneath. Jesus enters the story as a living rebuke to that order. He doesn't arrive through the throne, and he doesn't need the throne to be true.
If you have ever been harmed by someone's fear of losing control, this story is for you. If you were the innocent one caught in the panic of another person's ego, Christ sees that clearly. He does not call that righteousness. He does not call that order. He calls it what it is. And he enters the world anyway. We've been discussing Herod, when threatened power targets the innocent, from Dawes' work, informed by Dr. Remini Dervasula's insights. If this conversation resonated with you, consider sharing this episode with someone who might need to hear it.